Did you know a single habit during the age of 65 to 75 could silently shorten your life by 5 years? This decade isn't just a slow slide into old age, it's the most powerful turning point of your entire life. Many seniors believe the hard part is behind them, but the truth is, this is the moment that determines whether you'll stay strong, independent, and joyful, or begin a quiet descent into dependence and regret. I've spent over 10 years working closely with older adults, and I've seen this exact window transform people's futures, for better or worse. It's rarely about luck or genetics. It's about small daily choices, repeated or ignored. And the most dangerous part? These habits don't scream, they whisper. You barely notice them until it's too late. So before we reveal the habits that could be slowly stealing your freedom, do this. Like this video if any part of it speaks to you. Subscribe if you want to take control of your aging journey, and comment, "I'm ready," below if you're serious about change. Because what's coming next might be the wake-up call that shifts your entire future. Let's start with the first and most dangerously underestimated habit most people over 65 still refuse to let go of. 1. Don't rely on fortune-telling. 3 parts are determined by heaven, 7 by effort. It's a beautiful saying, but for many older adults, it becomes a reason to surrender control. I've seen seniors spend their limited income on fortune tellers, hoping to hear they'll stay healthy or live long. One man in his 70s once told me he skipped his medical appointments because a palm reader said he was destined to live past 90. 3 weeks later, he suffered a stroke. That moment broke my heart and reminded me of something I've learned over a decade of working with aging adults. Your future isn't written in the stars, it's written in your daily habits. Superstition may comfort us, but it distracts us from what truly matters: nutrition, movement, emotional peace, and routine checkups. Collision still think fortune-telling is harmless? Think again. False hope can be just as dangerous as fear. Instead of waiting for a prediction, take action. Your body listens more to your choices than any card. And coming up next, we'll talk about a habit even more dangerous than superstition. One misstep, one careless moment that could change everything. Let's talk about movement, balance, and why falling after 65 isn't just an accident. It's a life changer. 2. Move carefully and avoid climbing high. It only takes one misstep, just one, to change the rest of your life. I've seen it far too often. A seemingly strong 70-year-old climbs a stool to grab something from a cabinet and ends up with a broken hip, months in rehab, and a lost sense of independence. As we age, our bones become more fragile, our balance less reliable, and our reaction time slower. That's not weakness, it's biology. But what's tragic is that many seniors still believe they're just as steady as before. Collision. The truth is, falls are the #1 cause of injury-related death in adults over 65. I once worked with a woman who fell in her kitchen and never walked again. It broke her spirit more than her bones. That's why creating a safe environment, clearing clutter, using handrails, wearing non-slip shoes isn't caution, it's empowerment. Walk like your future depends on it, because it does. And remember, pride should never outweigh safety. Coming up next, the one invisible danger that sneaks up quietly, not physical, but financial. Let's talk about why not preparing for old age expenses could cost you more than money. It could cost your peace. 3. Accumulate wealth for old age. What if I told you that growing old without financial preparation is one of the biggest health risks no one talks about? I've seen it firsthand. Seniors skipping medications, missing doctor appointments, or eating poorly not because they don't care, but because they can't afford better. One man I worked with told me, "I have to choose between my heart pills and heating this winter." That's not just a money issue. That's a dignity issue. As we age, our ability to earn fades, but our expenses, especially medical, don't. Collision. And without savings, what once felt like independence quickly turns into quiet desperation. Financial stress doesn't just weigh on your wallet. It affects your sleep, your mood, even your immune system. That's why I always tell my patients, start preparing before you feel the pinch. A modest pension, a savings cushion, even downsizing earlier. These steps preserve not just your bank account, but your freedom. Because when you're financially independent, you're free to say yes to care, comfort, and joy. And now, let's talk about another freedom we take for granted, our energy. What happens when we ignore the body's signals and try to do more than we should? It's time we talk about overwork. 4. Don't overwork yourself. If your body had a voice, what would it be whispering to you right now? Many seniors ignore that inner warning, believing they still have to keep going like they're 40. But here's the truth I've seen too often. The older we get, the more dangerous it becomes to ignore fatigue. I once had a patient, 68, who insisted on doing all the house repairs himself. "Keeps me young," he said, until he collapsed from exhaustion and ended up hospitalized with heart strain. Collision overworking at this stage doesn't build strength, it breaks it. Your joints recover slower, your heart needs more rest, and your nervous system becomes less forgiving. I'm not saying stop being active. I'm saying learn to balance. Trade heavy lifting for mindful movement. Replace 10-hour shifts with focused, purposeful activity. You've earned the right to slow down, and doing so isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Your body is your only home. Treat it like you plan to live in it for decades more. And speaking of wisdom, there's another mistake I see often. Seniors who live like it's still wartime, refusing to spend even on their own well-being. Let's talk about what happens when frugality goes too far. 5. Don't be overly frugal. Have you ever met someone who lived through hardship and still lives as if the struggle never ended? I have. In fact, I've worked with dozens of older adults who survived war, poverty, or loss. They saved every coin, reused every bag, and skipped even basic comforts. One woman I knew ate canned soup every day, not because she had to, but because spending on fresh food felt wasteful. Collision, but here's the cost of extreme frugality: your health, your joy, your dignity. Saving is wise, yes, but saving so tightly that you deny yourself proper meals, warm clothing, or a little happiness. That's not strength, it's self-neglect. You've worked a lifetime. You deserve more than just survival. Now is the time to spend, not recklessly, but meaningfully. Treat yourself to nourishing food, soft blankets, and little joys that make life feel alive. As I always say, you can't take money with you, but you can take comfort and peace of mind all the way. And speaking of comfort, there's one place that holds more of it than any luxury purchase: your home. But what happens when others pressure you to give it up? Let's talk about the true value of staying in your own space. 6. Keep your old home. What if the safest place for your soul is the one you're being told to leave? I've had heartbreaking conversations with older adults pressured to sell their homes, sometimes by well-meaning children, other times by fear of simplifying life. But your home isn't just bricks and walls. It's memory. It's identity. One 74-year-old man I cared for told me, "I raised my kids here. My wife died in that room. I don't want to start over in a place with no history." Collision: when we lose our home, we risk losing more than space. We lose grounding. Of course, change can be necessary, but it should never be rushed. A familiar home supports mental clarity, emotional stability, and even physical safety. It keeps you connected to your timeline, your rhythm. Downsizing might make sense on paper, but if it costs your peace, it's not worth the price. You deserve to live where your memories live, too. And while we're on the topic of what seems helpful but isn't, there's something else many older adults fall into: buying health products that promise miracles, but deliver nothing but disappointment. Let's talk about how to protect your wallet and your well-being from the false promises of the health market. 7. Avoid unnecessary health products. What if I told you that some health products are doing more harm to your peace of mind than any illness ever could? I've seen it happen too often: older adults, desperate for hope, spending hundreds on pills, powders, and machines that promise youth, energy, or miracle cures. One man showed me a drawer full of unopened supplements, each one recommended by a different ad or friend. None of them worked. Collision: the real danger isn't just the money, it's the emotional drain of false hope. In my 10+ years in elderly care, I've learned this. Real health doesn't come in a bottle. It comes from consistency, clean food, light movement, rest, connection, and routine checkups with a real doctor. The wellness industry knows your fears, and it markets to them shamelessly. So the next time a label says anti-aging, ask yourself, is it healing me or selling me a dream? Your strength doesn't come from a magic capsule. It comes from honoring your body, one day at a time. And now, let's shift to something even more personal: your closest relationship. Because as you age, how you treat your partner could determine whether your home is a place of peace or silent pain. 8. Don't argue with your partner. What if the person sharing your pillow is also carrying the same invisible weight? After children move out and careers fade, your partner often becomes your primary connection to the world. But I've seen far too many older couples fall into the trap of bickering over tiny things: the TV volume, a forgotten grocery item, unspoken resentments. One couple I worked with had been married 51 years, but told me they felt more like roommates at war. Collision arguments at this stage don't just drain energy, they slowly poison the emotional safety of your home. And what's more, the stress affects your sleep, your heart, your mood. After decades together, your partner isn't your opponent, they're your anchor. I often tell patients, choose peace over pride. Replace blame with listening. When you speak with kindness, your home becomes a sanctuary again. And that sanctuary matters, especially in your later years. Because emotional harmony isn't a luxury, it's medicine. And speaking of emotional needs, what happens when loneliness creeps in and remarriage seems like the answer? Coming up next, why saying yes to a new relationship out of fear could cost you more than your freedom, it could cost your peace. 9. Be cautious about remarrying due to loneliness. Loneliness is real, but so is the risk of filling that space with the wrong person. I've met seniors who remarried in their 70s, not out of love, but out of fear. One man said, "I just couldn't stand the silence at dinner anymore." I understood his pain, but within months, he found himself living with someone whose habits clashed with everything he'd built, a shared space that no longer felt like home. Collision remarrying out of loneliness may ease the emptiness, but it can also create emotional chaos. At this stage in life, we all crave companionship, but it must come from connection, not convenience. I often tell patients, explore friendships, strengthen ties with family, join community spaces. These relationships can fill the heart without complicating your home. And if love does come again, let it arrive gently, with clarity, not as a rescue mission, but as a shared path forward. Because in later life, peace is more precious than passion. And now, let's talk about the one decision that many seniors make out of good intentions, but often leads to unexpected sorrow: moving into a nursing home. Let's explore why staying in your own space might protect more than just your comfort. It might protect your soul. 10. Avoid moving to nursing homes if possible. "I thought they'd take care of me," she whispered, eyes welling with tears. I'll never forget that moment. A woman in her 80s, once full of life, now sitting quietly in a nursing home, surrounded by strangers and scheduled routines. She had agreed to move in just for safety, but soon realized she'd left behind something priceless: familiarity, freedom, and the comfort of her own space. Collision nursing homes can offer care, but they often cost more than money. For many seniors, they bring loneliness, disconnection, and a silent grief that few talk about. I've seen residents decline emotionally not from illness, but from isolation. That's why, whenever possible, I encourage aging adults to remain in their homes. With the help of a caregiver or loved one, staying in familiar surroundings supports emotional strength, mental clarity, and a sense of control. Home isn't just where you live, it's where your life happened. And sometimes, that's the medicine we need most. Now, let's talk about another quiet loss that creeps in as we age: the fading of friendships. Coming up next, what to do when old colleagues disappear and how to build new connections that truly matter. 11. Relationships with colleagues and friends will naturally fade. No one warns you about this part. One day, the phone stops ringing. Lunch invites fade. Holidays pass without a single call from the people you once saw every day. Retirement doesn't just end a job, it often ends entire chapters of connection. I've seen older adults mourn not only the end of work, but the slow disappearance of colleagues turned friends. And here's the truth: collision relationships, like seasons, shift. It's not rejection, it's life. People move on, routines change, and distance grows silently. But that doesn't mean loneliness has to take root. I always tell patients, cherish what was, but invest in what is. Focus on the people around you now: family, neighbors, new acquaintances at community centers. Reach out with intention, not nostalgia. Because meaningful connection isn't about how long you've known someone, it's about how seen and supported you feel today. The ability to adapt emotionally is a sign of strength, not loss. And speaking of emotional resilience, what if the best response to confusion is no response at all? Coming up next, the underrated power of patience, and why waiting until tomorrow can sometimes be the smartest thing you do today. 12. If you don't understand something, wait until tomorrow. Not every problem needs to be solved today. In fact, the most dangerous decisions often come when we act too quickly. I once spoke with a gentleman who rushed to sell his home after a minor health scare, only to regret it deeply months later. Collision, there's wisdom in waiting. Just like the ocean follows the tide, clarity often follows rest. In my years working with older adults, I've seen how sleep, silence, and a good night's pause can turn panic into peace. If something feels confusing, don't force the answer. Don't pick up the phone in anger, don't sign the papers in fear, and don't make promises in stress. Aging teaches us that urgency is rarely your friend. I often say, when in doubt, sleep it out. Your brain processes information differently when rested. Your emotions soften. Perspective widens. That quiet space between confusion and clarity, that's where wisdom grows. And now, speaking of wisdom, there's another situation where silence can be even more powerful when it comes to money. Coming up next, why flaunting your wealth to family might not gain you admiration, but isolation. 13. Avoid flaunting your wealth to relatives. A kind gesture, a proud story, or even a new purchase. What feels harmless to you may carry a different weight to others. I've seen seniors joyfully share stories of their savings, a vacation, or gifts to their grandchildren, only to face unexpected coldness or jealousy from relatives. Collision flaunting wealth, even unintentionally, can quietly fracture family bonds. In my years working with aging families, I've learned this. Money triggers more emotions than most people realize: pride, shame, envy, resentment. That's why I often remind elders, celebrate your blessings, but protect your peace. You don't owe anyone a full account of your finances. True relationships are built on love and trust, not comparisons or perceived privilege. Keep generosity private. Let respect grow from your actions, not your assets. And when you share, do so from the heart, not to impress, but to uplift. Because your legacy will never be what you owned, it will be how you made people feel. And speaking of connection, there's one group of people who may be physically closest, yet emotionally life-saving: your neighbors. Let's talk about how building local bonds can turn ordinary days into something golden. 14. Maintain good relationships with neighbors. Sometimes, the most important people in your life live just a few steps away. In my years working with older adults, I've seen neighbors become lifelines, offering a helping hand during a fall, checking in after a storm, or simply saying hello when no one else calls. Collision: a good neighbor isn't just a nice to have. It can be the difference between isolation and connection. Yet many seniors withdraw, thinking they're too old to make new friends, or that they don't want to bother anyone. But small interactions matter. A smile over the fence, a shared recipe, a knock on the door to ask, "Are you okay?" These moments create community, and in later life, community becomes medicine. I often tell patients, you don't need dozens of people. You just need a few who care that you're still here. So next time you see a neighbor, say more than hello. Ask how they're doing. Offer help if you can. Accept help when needed. Because the ties that hold us up in hard times are often built on quiet kindness. And speaking of safety, what happens when the place you call home turns dark? Up next, why lighting isn't just practical, it can be life-saving. 15. Go outside with proper lighting. Imagine stepping into the hallway at night, just one light bulb out, and suddenly, your own home becomes a maze of risk. I've seen it more times than I'd like. Older adults tripping over a rug, missing a step, or bumping into a chair, all because the lighting was poor. Collision: as we age, our night vision weakens. Reflexes slow. Balance shifts. A small stumble in your 30s may leave a bruise. But after 65, it can mean a broken hip, a hospital stay, months of recovery, or worse. That's why I always tell my patients, don't wait for an accident to start lighting your path. Install night lights in the hallway, keep a flashlight by the bed, and make sure all outdoor areas are well lit. It's not paranoia, it's prevention, and it sends a powerful message to yourself and others. Your safety matters. You matter. Take one step today to protect all your steps tomorrow. And now, let's talk about another kind of darkness, not around you, but within. Coming up next, why comparing yourself to others in this stage of life could quietly steal your happiness, and how to stop it before it starts. 16. Don't compare yourself to others. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, they're aging better than I am? I've heard this countless times from patients who feel left behind, not just physically, but emotionally. They see others traveling, dancing, smiling in family photos, and quietly wonder, what's wrong with me? Collision: but here's the truth, comparison is the thief of contentment, especially in later life. I've worked with wealthy seniors who feel lonely, and modest ones who glow with peace. It's not about what you have. It's about what you see when you look in the mirror. Aging isn't a competition. It's a journey, one filled with different stories, struggles, and seasons. I always tell people, measure your life not by how it looks, but by how it feels. Are you breathing deeply? Eating well? Loving fully? That's wealth. That's success. So the next time you're tempted to compare, shift your gaze inward. Celebrate what you've survived, what you've learned, and what still makes you smile. And now, speaking of things that seem harmless but cause deep damage, let's talk about something far too common: overeating. Why it's not just about your weight, but your heart, your digestion, and your longevity. 17. Avoid overeating. You feel full, but you keep eating because it tastes good or because wasting food is a sin. Sound familiar? I've sat at many kitchen tables with seniors who mean well, but eat just a little too much at every meal. Over time, those little extra bites add up, not just on the waistline, but in wear and tear on the body. Collision as we age, our metabolism slows, digestion weakens, and the organs that once processed big meals with ease now struggle quietly. Bloating, acid reflux, and even heart strain can come from something as simple as a second helping. That's why I encourage mindful eating, smaller portions, slower bites, and tuning into your body's quiet signals. Eating until 80% full isn't restriction, it's wisdom. It allows your system to rest, process, and protect your long-term health. And don't underestimate the power of a short walk after meals. It aids digestion and clears the mind. Your meal should nourish, not burden. And now, speaking of food, let's go deeper into what's actually on your plate. Coming up next, why salty, fatty foods may not just hurt your heart, but silently sabotage your aging body from the inside out. 18. Steer clear of high-fat and high-salt foods. It's easy to reach for what tastes familiar: crispy fried snacks, salty soups, rich stews. They bring comfort, memories, and flavor. But over the years, I've watched these favorites quietly become health traps. Collision: too much salt raises blood pressure. Too much fat clogs arteries. And when your organs are aging, they can't process excess the way they used to. I once had a patient who felt dizzy every afternoon. The cause? A daily diet of canned food and pickled vegetables. The salt was overwhelming her kidneys and heart. That's why I always recommend: read labels, cook fresh when you can, and retrain your taste buds. Healthy food doesn't have to be bland. It just has to be smart. Focus on whole foods, leafy greens, fresh fruits, lean proteins, and healthy fats like olive oil or avocado. Hydration also matters: more water, fewer sugary or processed drinks. With every meal, you're either healing or harming your body. Choose healing. And speaking of healing, there's one thing even healthy food can't fix: emotional wounds. Up next, why your feelings, especially the ones you suppress, may be slowly hurting your body more than you think. 19. Don't let negative emotions damage your health. You smile on the outside, but inside, you're still holding on to anger, fear, or grief. And over time, those emotions don't just stay in your heart, they settle into your body. I've worked with seniors who were doing everything right, eating well, exercising, taking their pills, but still felt sick, tired, or emotionally flat. Collision in the missing piece? Unhealed emotional pain. Science now confirms what wisdom has long known: stress, resentment, and sadness release hormones that weaken the immune system, raise blood pressure, and disrupt sleep. I once knew a woman who hadn't spoken to her sister in 20 years. The stress of that silence showed up in her body as chronic fatigue and digestive issues. I gently encouraged her to write a letter, not for reconciliation, but for release. It changed her health more than any supplement. So today, I ask you, what are you still carrying that no longer serves you? Let it go. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. And now, speaking of true self-care, let's shift from emotions to action. Up next, why the kind of exercise you choose matters more than ever, and how moving the right way can help you age with strength, balance, and confidence. 20. Exercise appropriately. Your body may have aged, but it still wants to move. The key is knowing how. I've seen seniors try to force their younger routines, heavy lifting, high-intensity workouts, and end up with pulled muscles or painful joints. Collision exercise at this stage isn't about pushing limits, it's about preserving freedom. And yes, movement is still essential. The right kind keeps your heart strong, your mind sharp, and your balance steady. I often recommend walking, gentle stretching, tai chi, swimming, or even dancing in the living room. It's not about sweating, it's about sustaining. One patient of mine, 78, began a simple morning walk after years of inactivity. Not only did her blood pressure improve, her mood, appetite, and confidence came back too. That's the power of mindful movement. It reminds your body that you're still here, still capable, still living. So choose activities that feel good, not punishing. Move with kindness, not competition. Because every step you take is an investment, not just in longevity, but in joy. And now that you've explored all 20 powerful habits, there's only one question left. Which one will you change today to protect your tomorrow? You've just explored 20 powerful shifts that can reshape the way you age, physically, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. Some habits were small, others deeply rooted, but all of them share one truth: they are choices. And choices are where your power lives. Collision aging is not the end of the road. It's the beginning of a wiser, freer chapter. I've spent years walking beside older adults who found more strength at 70 than they had at 40, not because of luck, but because of intention. And now it's your turn. Which habit hit home for you? What are you ready to change, if not someday, but today? If this video opened your eyes, touched your heart, or gave you something to think about, please backhand index pointing right like this video so more people like you can see it. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe for weekly insights on aging with strength and grace. Backhand index pointing right, and most importantly, leave a comment sharing your story, because your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. This isn't goodbye, it's your invitation to take back control, one choice at a time. Let's grow stronger together.